What went wrong with Gotham's Batman? To think, we're coming up for a year since Gotham concluded, and the long-awaited Batman finally made his appearance at the end of the show. And also, we're coming up for the 2-year anniversary of Channel Pup, so I figured now's as good a time as any to return to my roots and make a Gotham video, as for those of you who don't know, I started out making videos on Gotham theories and Gotham news. It remains one of my favorite TV shows of all time today, so let's talk about how Gotham treated the character of Batman. One of the things I really loved about Gotham, especially from season 2 onwards, was how we could experience the life lessons that led up to Bruce becoming Batman. As a Batman fan, there were a lot of moments that I could point out and say, that's formative. That lesson he's learning there is going to contribute towards him becoming the Batman. We've had obvious ones such as the death of the Waynes, Bruce learning hand-to-hand combat alongside Alfred, him donning a very early prototype of the Batsuit, we've seen the Batcave, a very early echo of how the Batmobile might come to be, but then there are also great little stories within that, such as Bruce preparing to tell Selina about his crusade to fight crime in Gotham, his crusade to become the Batman, and we have a great scene where Alfred explains to Bruce why he cannot let her know what he's planning. With all of its build up to Bruce Wayne becoming Batman, Gotham promised a great deal with this character, and really told some excellent formative stories about the Batman. And beyond that, there was just a heck of a lot that Gotham really got right. The treatment of Batman's rogues gallery for one. But at the very last minute, something just went kinda wrong with Batman himself. Now, it's not like the cracks weren't starting to show early on. Bruce Wayne was effectively becoming Batman towards the middle of the 3rd season. As a teenager, Bruce Wayne was a known figure in the Batman rogues gallery. So I think there is that issue that people would naturally assume that Bruce Wayne is Batman by the time that Batman comes onto the scene. You'd think like in 20 years time you'd have the Riddler and Penguin getting beat up by Batman and it'd be like, oh, this is just like that time we were beaten up by that teenage guy, you know, Bruce Wayne. Oh yeah, you notice how Bruce Wayne doesn't do that anymore? Yeah, good thing there's this Batman guy around with the exact same skill set. Not to mention, Bruce does pretty much to all intents and purposes let Selina Kyle know very early on that he's going to become the Batman. And if he takes Bane on again, I'm pretty sure Bane's gonna know that the guy surrounded by bats probably grew up to become Batman. The truth be told though, at the time of watching those older seasons, I really didn't mind this. It makes for good television. Just so long as the finale would at least try and convince us that these people don't know that Batman is Bruce Wayne. Now, the thing is, Gotham, to be fair, is a very unique take on the Batman mythos. Batman's presence is not what created the criminals and monsters of Gotham. Batman is basically a correction to a city of monsters. He is the light that shines in the dark. And that's fine, I can get behind that. But if you were to do a new take on Batman, where everybody knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman, you would need to expand upon that a little bit. Because let's face it, Gotham City is probably, in the DC universe, the most dangerous city on Earth. It's a city of monsters, as is set up in Gotham anyway. And if they knew that there was a blue and grey demon enacting justice unto them, and they knew that that person was Bruce Wayne, well, Bruce Wayne would never get a moment's rest. Gotham presents us with an underworld that is very interconnected and very volatile. You would not want these freaks knowing your face. So if we have a Batman universe where the Joker knows who Batman is, you would need to expand upon how Bruce Wayne goes about his day-to-day life. Or else the story would be very incomplete. Either that or you'd need to do a lot to establish just how dangerous and just how competent this Batman could be. But if you're going to do this drastic of a take on Batman, you need to really expand upon it, and you need to expand upon the parallel between Bruce Wayne and Batman. So that was what the Gotham finale really needed to do. It either needed to explain how nobody knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman, or nobody cares who Bruce Wayne is anymore, or it really needed to expand upon the double life of Bruce Wayne and Batman and explain how Bruce Wayne gets a moment's rest. The end result was a finale that did neither of those things. Now, I will acknowledge that the Batman that Gotham had set up through the different life lessons and the showcasing of the Batcave and the early Batmobile, those were probably just formative events, but we probably weren't going to see that come to the actual Batman in the end, because there's only so much you can do with the amount of budget and the amount of time with a TV episode. So while I will say, yes, it is quite unsatisfying that we never get to see the fully formed Batmobile or the fully formed Batcave after these two things have been highly hinted at, I do understand why that probably wasn't possible. but neglecting the logistics of the Batman character and his relationship to his rogues gallery is something that I can't let slide quite as easily. Now, this finale already had a lot on its plate with having to deal with that, but unfortunately it got a lot worse, as the final season was more interested in introducing new characters such as Bane, Magpie, the Ventriloquist, the Granny, than it was in giving us any closure with the characters that we know and love. There were certain things that were done well, such as the redemption of Barbara Keene, the wedding of Lee Tompkins and Jim Gordon, but fan favorites like Penguin, Riddler, and Joker were given very little to do that season, so their big spotlight would be in the finale, but we needed to devote more of that episode to Bruce. Instead, Gotham's finale ends up being a showcase of Penguin, Riddler, and Joker 10 years on getting up to evil antics while being harassed by a black bat. As for Bruce Wayne and Batman's dual identity, some people know and some people don't. For starters, Bruce Wayne returns from his training in the Himalayas after 10 years, and he brings with him the Batman. And he's supposed to be attending a Wayne Gala event, but instead he's out fighting crime. Now, I think literally anybody would be able to put two and two together here. Bruce Wayne returns for the first time in 10 years, it's the night he gets back, and there just so happens to be a Batman floating around harassing criminals. Bruce Wayne isn't attending his own gala, but he's still out fighting crime. Anybody would put two and two together here. And that's the thing, this finale does nothing at all to state that Bruce Wayne and Batman aren't the same person to the Batman Rogues Gallery. It just makes it worse. To the point that when Penguin and Enigma are like, oh, we need to find out who that guy is, it just kind of feels a bit like they're trying to force a traditional Batman in the place of a non-traditional Batman. And with that, it just doesn't feel earned and it just feels lazy. Selina Kyle knows almost immediately who Batman is. She just kind of assumes it immediately, and it's a departure, but that one's okay. Selina Kyle has never been an outright threat to Batman, and there's always been kind of a will they won't they as to whether or not she knows his identity or not, and I believe there are a number of iterations where she does know the identity. She rarely knows it this early on in the game, but fair enough. They didn't even try to convince us that she hasn't figured it out by now, which is fine. But then there's the egregious one. Then there's the big issue. The Joker figures it out. He sees Batman in the shadows and has a realization. Now, I was saying back during the whole Gotham's Joker problem that the idea of the Joker having a close personal relationship with Bruce Wayne is already an issue. Jerome Valeska, Gotham's first Joker, knew way too much about Bruce Wayne and had interacted with him way too much to not figure out later on that he'd become Batman. So then they killed off Jerome Valeska and it was like, okay, so we got a clean slate now for the next Joker, Jeremiah Valeska, the twin brother. They can now set up a Batman and Joker dynamic that won't have that baggage, right? Because you can't have the Joker know Batman's secret identity without properly elaborating on that. If that were the case, the Joker would never leave him the fuck alone. But it was like, okay, Jeremiah's gone into a vat of acid now. He's gonna become the Joker. I'm sure he'll forget everything, right? He was declared brain dead at the end of Ace Chemicals. This would give him the dramatic personality shift from the calculating mastermind through to the cackling maniac. The issue there is, that didn't happen. Jeremiah's change through to the Joker was literally only an appearance thing. He still remembers his real name, he still remembers who Bruce Wayne is, he's still obsessed with him, so it's like, okay, maybe he'd drop his obsession with Bruce Wayne and shift focus over to Batman, right? Well, then there's another problem. He has a little rant about how Bruce Wayne left him for 10 years, but then when he sees Batman in the shadows, he declares, "It's you." So the Joker knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman. Well, that's quite a big deal then. You're gonna need to elaborate on that. You can't just have the most dangerous Batman villain knowing Batman's secret identity without fully elaborating on it. But the Joker just gets knocked out with a batarang and then we're just off to the next scene. That's it. That is a big elephant in the room right there that just wasn't addressed. Everybody Bruce Wayne knows or has ever known or loved is in danger. Now, I can imagine that the Joker is not the kind of person that would go blabbing to just anyone as to Batman's secret identity. He's the kind of guy that would relish in knowing a secret that nobody else knows. But the Joker alone is enough of a problem. But there's a number of different quick fixes for this. We could have had an exchange between the Joker and Batman where the Joker explains, "Don't worry, buddy, it'll be our little secret. I don't care about Bruce Wayne anymore, all I want is Batman." I can imagine the Joker using that as kind of a moral high ground over Bruce Wayne. It's like, yeah, I don't harass you as Bruce Wayne. I'm not interested in who's behind the mask. All I'm interested in is who you are now. That could totally work, or if there was just something like a line of dialogue to state that the Joker is now suffering from amnesia after being hit in the head with a batarang. But instead we have a Batman where you'd have to be kind of an idiot not to figure out that it's Bruce Wayne. We take Penguin and Riddler, two of the smartest people in the show, and make them complete idiots, and they basically just say through dialogue that they don't know who Batman is, and it's just like, you really have to take their word for that. And then Detective Jim Gordon can't figure it out, even though he's got Alfred standing right next to him, talking all about how far Bruce Wayne has come while looking directly at Batman. And this is the really unfortunate thing about this finale. This is the one thing it really needed to do that it didn't do, is that we don't establish Batman's place in Gotham. We show that there is a Batman about, Bruce Wayne has become Batman, but because neither Bruce Wayne or Batman get any screen time until the very end, and most of the villains are doing their absolute best to try and convince us that they don't know who Batman is, Gotham sadly brings us an incredibly unconvincing version of Batman. And it raises a lot more questions than it answers. This doesn't close the book, this just opens up a brand new can of worms. I understand the episode's called The Beginning, the producers wanted it to feel like a backdoor pilot for a Batman TV series. But since we're never going to actually see any of that anyway, would it not have been better to kind of give us more answers as to how this ties over to the Batman that we know and love, so that this series can at least feel even just slightly complete? I think an aspect to Batman and Bruce Wayne getting so little screen time in this obviously comes down to the fact that this was a premature finale. The show had to end prematurely because of low viewership. Not enough people were tuning in or were interested, reminding me again of why I hate human beings. Which meant that David Mazouz had not grown into the role of a fully fledged Bruce Wayne / Batman. And you can't have a Batman who's in his teen years running around, it would just be weird. Which is why Bruce Wayne never appears in the episode outside of the Batsuit, and Batman only gets one appearance in his Batsuit on a rooftop from a distance, with David Mazouz's mouth VFX composited over the Batman actor's mouth. This is an issue. This finale really needed to be about Bruce Wayne and his place in Gotham now that he's Batman, but they kind of had to work with what they had, and I understand they didn't want to recast David Mazouz because he'd been acting for that show for 5 years, he did an amazing job. Why would you want to do that to him, you know? But the fact is, they showed David Mazouz at the very beginning before his 10 years of training, so he did get to make an appearance in the finale anyway. And let's face it, it's not like he actually got to physically wear the Batsuit, his face was just VFX composited over it. It probably would have been a much more satisfying experience if we had recast Bruce Wayne. I mean, they did it with Selina Kyle, who we never see fully suited up as Catwoman, so that's another issue. And to top the whole thing off, we end with a clearly green screen shot of Batman on a rooftop, in a Batsuit that doesn't even look like an early prototype. None of this even looks remotely practical or protective. I understand that Gotham's finale was an uphill battle for all involved. Unfortunately, the outcome is just a finale that's begging you to be convinced that this is Batman, but there are just far too many holes in this. The Batman in this universe, identity-wise, it just in all counts is an absolute dumpster fire. I think we'd be better off if we just never saw this side of it. If maybe you just ended the show with Bruce still in his teen years and just saw that he was creating like a bat mask and then just had the final shot be him looking at the bat mask. I'm sure a lot of people would have complained that we didn't actually get to see Batman fully formed, but I think it would still close the book better than this did. It would still give us a more convincing Batman than this did. And then kind of the rest is history, you know? You want to see a fully formed Batman? Watch a Batman movie, you know? With the finale that we got and the Batman that we got, there's just far too much that's contradictory for it to tie into any external media. And the story of Gotham as it is just didn't feel complete. So that is Gotham's Batman problem. What do you guys think? Comment below and discuss, and as always, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, why don't you head over to channelpup.net, where we've got a blog page called Dr. Blogtopus, but as well as that, you can also buy merch, such as this awful t-shirt. But if you want to be a part of the super fun Kennel Club, why not hit subscribe, hit the like button, and in the description below, you can check out the links to my Patreon and my Twitter. I think that would be pretty sweet for both of us. What do you say, champ? But in all seriousness now, thank you so much for watching, my fellow home dogs. Have a great day, because you and I both know you've earned it.
I'll catch you next time. That's a cute outfit. Did your husband give it to you? Because you could get a way better costume from Zentai Zone. Check out their range of custom-made, tailored superhero costumes. Ridiculously good quality, value, and customization. Link is in the description below, as well as my coupon code CHANNELPUP, where you can get a discount off of your purchase. And while you're at it, why not get your suit designed by my talented buddy Dan from New Blood Dan's workshop? You can contact him via the link in the description below. Seriously guys, you do not want to miss out on your chance to be your favorite superhero and feel authentic and professional. And you don't want to miss out on that Channel Pup discount.